Have you ever wondered how someone you hardly knew and would never know became so special to you? Two strangers, one stop. It was the first time I met him, and also the last time. I arrived in America on a windy Friday afternoon. After the Canada trip, a friend, Jan, had agreed to let me stay in her apartment for the next 6 months. I would head for Mexico after that. I decided so while struggling with my huge overlist. I had never stopped in a place for longer than 6 months. Need some help? A man's voice asked. Thank you. I beamed as the man came by to help with the luggage. He pulled it effortlessly towards the bench. He sat down, leaving a room for me. Reluctantly, I sat down too and looked around. Jan hadn't come. It was just the two of us on this empty rail platform. The man was reading something intensively, silent like a statue. I'd guess he was around 30, looking absolutely comfortable in his navy jacket and a neat backpack, as if he had never got off from that exhausting 5-hour road trip. A few strands of dark hair fell loosely on his forehead, a subtle smile on his lips. It somehow reminded me of that Bryce from the movie Flipped that I used to watch as a child. He felt my staring and closed the small book in his hands. Homeland, the cover said. Where are you going? He asked in a low, deep voice. His voice, a voice I can't forget. I froze for a second. Where am I going? My mind went blank. Never had I prepared for such a question. I don't know, I replied in a subdued voice, staring at the ground. Not yet, he corrected me. I blushed as he turned to face me, blue eyes, an infinite blue, my escape calling to me. Well, I'm gonna stay with a friend here in America, but I haven't figured out my next destination yet. I blurted out like a child questioned by her father. All of a sudden, Mexico no longer felt that sure. That spontaneous future plan was fading. Well, then maybe this will help, huh? He said while pulling something out of his backpack. A pocket map. Wanderers like me receive free mementos all the time. Okay, simply enough, just gratefully take it and say thank you with a smile. Gratefully take it and say thank you with a smile. But I could not utter a word. Somehow, this man made such a simple welcome look just as deep as the ocean in his eyes. So I started planning some conversations in my head. I could have asked for his name, or at least I could have told him how thankful I was and that the gift was so cute. Could have cast some jokes on how it looked like a treasure map. But hardly had I done any of those things that I heard Jan shouting my name in the distance. You're welcome, he said as he took my hand and gently placed the map in it. Didn't even wait for my thank you. So that's your friend, right? And I just wished Jan had forgotten me that day. Yeah, I'm sorry I have to go. Really hoped we could talk more. I tried not to show my disappointment. Me too. Here, let me help you. He bent forward and helped with the luggage again. From this angle, I could see his long dark eyelashes and the small scar on his nose. In a moment, I realized how little time is left for us. My eyes moved all over his face, trying to remember every shade of it. Jan came with a hug, which even made it clearer. We're saying goodbye. And then he would be blown away from my life like a speck of dust, unable to be seen. Thoughts raced through my brain. I could have asked for his name. But what for? Just another passerby I may never meet again. Jan led us to the car. We were walking side by side. For no reason, I still felt an urge to say something before we said goodbye. Anyway, thank you for the map. I think I will find out my next stop soon. He just smiled lightly, no reply. We said goodbye, and he could have let it end that way, but he didn't. Will you stay? Came his voice from behind me. Blue eyes straight into mine just before I got into the car. I choked on my reply. It struck my heart. In that moment, the colorful picture of Mexico with its spicy dishes, mariachi, sombreros, all vanished into the moist September air under his spell. I can still clearly remember him seeing me off with a warm smile. Still remember myself cuddling in Jan's car, gazing at the bright red X drawn precisely on the location of our station. I turned around, and he was still looking towards the car, but going further and further away from me, as if he would always stand there, looking out for me till the end of time. I keep believing so, even though he was no longer there the next day when I rushed to our station, so I kept rushing. The small map occupied a grand place on my room's wall. Nothing felt better than simply looking at it, at the bright red X. I relished the thought that he had drawn it only for me, to tide me to that fixed point, to anchor my wandering ship. I started the first chapter of Homeland 1 week later. The station strangely made a good place for reading. He will come someday, standing right in front of me, saying hi with his blue eyes, giving me a reason to stay. Yes, how dreamy and naive I was. 1,000 pages turned, but he was nowhere to be found. I don't understand. A taste of despair, but I returned to our bench again the next day. It's only been 1 month, and I'm never short of books. Before my 6 months passed, I caught myself putting the overlays in the corner and started using the wardrobe instead. I did not hold that Prince Charming dream of him anymore. But with my stubborn disposition, I refused to fail this test of patience. I'm not going anywhere till I find him. And most importantly, I'd spend time studying some other places. None has such an assuring X. 8 months passed, and I met my husband. For the first time in 7 years, I decided to go on a date without worrying about the future, without having a new destination. I texted my parents my permanent address after moving in with Daniel. For the first time, I wanted to stay. How weird it all started with a stranger. It rained the day before our wedding. Daniel is patiently sitting beside me. The uncrowded station felt serene. So if he just appears out of the blue right now, will you run away with him? Daniel asked, half joking. I giggled, but then stopped in bewilderment, asking myself the same question. I had gotten so used to him never coming that the mere thought of the scenario Daniel mentioned actually scared me. What if he comes? Well, I knew him for 20 minutes. I've known you for years, loved you for years. How can I live? I tried to gather my thoughts. I love Daniel. I know it for sure. But why the blue eyes are still there, I can't explain. How can I make Daniel understand something which I'm still unable to understand myself? I've After all, he's just one of my fantasies, well, perhaps the biggest. But you're my real life. There should be no comparison, Danny. I struggled for words. Daniel smiled sympathetically, noticing my confusion. It's okay, honey, I understand, he whispered, weaving his fingers into mine. And I love you too. Days, months, years. Time flew by quickly with my little family beside. Life smoothly flowed like an idyllic river. Yet, the stranger was still a knot I couldn't unravel. I find myself stopping by our station time after time. Somehow it became a tradition. Whenever I don't know where I'm going, I know I'm going to the X. It's my heaven and he's my fairy tale. I would stop there and start pulling myself together. Then I would search for him in the passing crowd. Just as a habit, he never comes. Jan said it was silly. I'm missing a stranger. He will never come. He never misses me. So unfair. He's my final stop. Well, I'm just another passerby. This one morning I woke up, missing him badly. Still so many questions, so many emotions left unexplained. I turned around quietly to find Daniel's unruly hair fondling my cheek. There was some crying. Daniel sprang out of bed like a rocket. Don't, Lind! Dad is coming! I chuckled and grabbed the feeding bottle. Mommy's coming too. Daniel sang the odd lullaby we composed while I fed our little girl. If only he could see all this, and I could at least tell him, yes, I'm staying. That afternoon, I drove to the station, just for another long wait. Can't you just please come for once? We welcomed Teddy not long after, watching two lovely kids playing around, laughing, teasing their father was just sheer pleasure, an internal fulfillment I'd been searching for so long. How weird. Today too, he didn't come. Daniel said I could stay a bit longer. I still can't explain why I got so upset over him. Sometimes I'm surprised by Daniel's patience with me when I talk about this stranger from my past. But he lets me be free. It's like he's waiting for me to find an answer to a question I haven't even asked yet. Why he doesn't come? Why do I still care? Why does a stranger mean so much to me? I look over to Daniel and his ever-present smile. The kids must be waiting. Maybe it's time to go home. And suddenly, I know exactly why.